Welcome back everybody to our Intermediate and Advanced Civil 3D Training video series. In the previous two videos, we are talking about corridor design, heavy corridor design, advanced corridor design for a subdivision, and we've created our alignments and our design ground profiles for our centerline alignments. We are unable to do these, our knuckles and cul-de-sacs yet because we don't have the information to base that off of. So I have my alignments, I have my profiles already created. In this video, we're going to take a look at starting our assemblies, creating our assemblies, all the ones we're going to need, and we're going to create a few additional ones just in case there are other ones that we need. And we're going to base those off of our design standards. So in my design standards here, I have a primary collector road and what the primary collector road looks like. So that's 29 meters wide. We have 3.5 meter driving lanes on both sides. We have a 4.2 meter bike and parking lane. We have a 1.75 meter grass median. Now, where we have to pay attention here is when we're looking at the numbers themselves. The dimensions are to the lip of gutter, the edge of asphalt, the edge of pavement dimensions. So when we draw our assemblies up, we need to make sure that the numbers that we're inputting are good with the edge of asphalt numbers that we need to put in. So when we take a look at the outside or the inside, the 3.5, the 4.2 is edge of asphalt to edge of asphalt, and then we have 2.75 meters to the side of our sidewalk, a 2 meter wide sidewalk, and then a 0.3 meter to the rest of our property line. So we have two grass medians. We have a grass median in the middle, and then the same is on the other side. So essentially we're going to be doing half of it, and then we'll mirror it. We'll use the assembly mirror tools. Now I do have my assemblies already in here, and that's just so I can copy and steal some numbers, but we're going to start with that primary collector road. So I am under assemblies, or under corridors. I'm going to create an assembly. I'm going to name this primary collector median. And I'm just going to put new behind it because I already have some existing assemblies in here. My assembly type, we can change this after. Sometimes it's going to throw warnings up, sometimes it won't. I'm just going to go a divided crowned road, and we're going to see if that works with our median in the middle. My style, I'm just going to leave as the assembly in the code set, and I will hit OK. I'm going to place my assembly. Essentially, we're going to be recreating this one here. I'm going to place my assembly right here. Now, what Civil 3D gives us is the assembly marker, the center line of the assembly, the point that the circle is going to be tracking along the alignment and the profile. So this circle with the square grip is the important part of our assembly piece. This is what will follow the alignment. Now, to open up the pieces so we could start using them, I'm going to type in tool palettes, and hit enter. Alternatively, okay, my tool palette did not show. I didn't hit enter. Alternatively, we could come into our home ribbon of our home ribbon and click on this button right here for tool palettes. If your prospector or settings ever goes away, it's usually these two buttons right here. Just a quick tip. So I've opened up my tool palettes either through the ribbon or I typed the command in, and we're going to take a look at we're not going to take a look at all the options. We're just going to go through the ones we need. This is going to probably be a quite long video, if not broken into two steps. I'm going to select medians. The median is the one, I'm going to start with median, and I'm going to select median flush with barrier. Now, when I click median flush with barrier, it pops up the properties window where I could type in my numbers now. So I could come in here. I'm going to omit the barrier. I don't want to see it. And I'm going to type in the numbers from my primary collector road. So this is 1.335, and this is also 1.335. I'm not using any super elevation. This is a straight road. My default Slopes on my median itself are going to be 0%. Again, turn off super elevation, away from crown. Now this just controls the slope to the left and the right. The slope from the median itself. Now, pavement depths. Depending on what jurisdiction you are living in, what you're working on, that will control your pavement depths. However, I don't want any pavement on my median itself, and I'm going to only leave it as a sub-base depth. The dimensions down here are for the barrier itself, the barrier in the middle of the road, and we'll take a look at that in 1 second. So I'll just leave those as is. I've turned the barrier off. We could entirely turn it back on if we wanted to. So I am going to click on my assembly now, or my assembly marker, and I basically clicked on the center, and as we see here, it's displayed as a slope. So Civil 3D has displayed it with a slope, even though we've specified no slope. Now this is where it can get a little bit confusing when you're tying your roads together, because you're going to need to do some math in order to figure out how high above or below that things will need to be adjusted, and we'll go through that in a future video here. But taking a look at our design guidelines here, so the 1.335, we see here that the entire median is 3.5 meters wide, and that is from lip of gutter to lip of gutter. So when I get my curb and gutters put in, then we can measure the distance and make sure that it is the 3.5. But I have gone through and I've done a bunch of math. We have, I believe it's a 0.55 meter gutter, or 0.5 meter gutter, half a meter, and I've just done the math to subtract it, so we have the correct information here. Now, if I want to change options after, I can select the median. I can go to properties or subassembly properties and say I want to see that barrier. I can turn it back on. I can omit the barrier as well. So things can be changed after the fact. There's always going to be adjustments. There's always going to be tweaks. There's always going to be a number that you missed or a number that you typed in incorrectly. So just come back and double check it. Now we're going to start building the right-hand side of the road. So I'm going to close my properties. It will just open back up. I'm going to look at curbs. And I'm going to use the urban curb and gutter valley 1. I'm going to define the right-hand side of the road. Now we cannot name all these pieces yet. We'll have to name them after we put them in. And that's easily doable again through properties. So this one, it's going to be on the right hand side. My insertion point is going to be the curb back. I want it to attach to this top purple circle right here. My gutter slope method will be outside lane slope. The gutter slope is minus 10%. The gutter slope direction is towards the crown. Sub-base depth and extension, I'm just going to set them to 0 for this. But you might have, the slope method, outside lane slope. You might have a sub-base depth that is compacted underneath the curb and gutter that they build beforehand and entirely put those numbers in. My sub-base slope I'll just put for minus 2%, and then the dimensions from my jurisdiction for the curb and gutter. And we'll take a look at what all this ABCD means here in a second. 0.025, 0.14, 0.165, 0.280. So these ones I've gone through and I've done the math based on the city where I live, their details for the curb and gutter. And I'm going to select the top right purple circle. Now, what are all these dimensions? What's the A, what's the B, the C, the D, the E, and the F? Arguably the only time I ever go into the help command is when looking at assembly pieces, because it doesn't give you any description. It doesn't show you physically. It doesn't say anything. So right click on the assembly piece you want to look at and select help. It'll open up the help section for that urban curb and gutter valley 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever you use, and it's going to tell you the dimensions. So my dimension A is the depth of the curb and gutter. So my jurisdiction says 0.165. B would be 0.25. That's the dimension in which the water flows. It's a 0.25 meter curb and gutter. C would be the difference between the flange and the low point. So you can look in the help section for all the required numbers. And then just look at your detail and attribute it into Civil 3D. So we have our curb and gutter placed in. The next thing I'm going to do, looking at the detail from the city, we have our median, we have our curb and gutter, and even right now we could measure the distance between the center line and the edge of the curb and gutter. So when we measure the distance from here to here, it should be 1.75, and we have 1.75. Looking at the next dimension, we have a 3.5 meter wide driving lane, and we have a 4.2 meter bike lane. So I'm going to place both of these in separate pieces, but they'll both be lanes. Now, if we had to super elevate our road, if we had to transition it, if we have to stretch it, which we will, you want to use the smart pieces. I'm avoiding the basic tab because these ones don't modify. I'm going directly into the lanes, the smart pieces. I'm going to use the lane super elevation AOR assembly piece. Now looking back, 3.5 meters wide. So I'm drawing it on the right hand side. This is 3.5 meters. It is a -2%. And then we have our pavement depths. So again, according to your city, according to your country, wherever you're working, you have specific depths for pavement. You usually have a top layer, a secondary layer, your base and your sub base built out of gravel and sand and whatnot. And those will be defined by your city or whatever. If we had super elevation, we could turn it on. This is a long straight road. We generally don't have super elevation in a residential subdivision, so we're going to leave it on none. My slope direction is away from crown. Potential pivot. I've seen this cause a few problems in the past, in 2021, the 22 before the update. So I'm going to set my potential pivot to no. Now my inside point code, I'm going to set for edge of pavement. So my inside point code right here will be edge of pavement. My outside point code will be edge of lane. I'm going to click on this purple circle and it should slope away from the center median. Now I'm going to immediately switch this to 4.2. My inside point code is now edge of lane. My outside point code is edge of pavement. So inside is edge of lane, outside is edge of pavement. I'm going to click the top purple circle and we have our 3.5 meter lane, and we have our 4.2 meter lane. And just double check your detail, 3.5, 4.2, a total of 7.7. If you want to measure the distance to double check, we have a 7.7 meter wide pavement there. I'm going to do my curb and gutter now for the right hand side. I am again going to use Urban Curb and Gutter Valley 1. But this time the options are going to be different since this is the side that's going to be collecting the water. So my insertion point will be gutter edge, outside lane slope of -10. A slope of away from crown. My sub base and sub base extension, I'm just going to put a 0 for now. Outside lane slope -2. And essentially I'm matching the same numbers from the previous command. Albeit possibly slightly different from the one on the inside because they are different sides. I'll click that top right purple circle. It'll place my curb and gutter in. Now there are different assemblies for Civil 3D and for curb and gutters. I'm just keeping it fairly simple here. Urban curb and gutter Valley 3 for a primary collector would probably be the one you want to use. It has the flat top. I'm just going to assume that this is a straight face curb, and the points that I really am concerned about are the tie-in to the sidewalk area and the low point where the water flows. Now finally, we are going to do our sidewalk. So my right hand sidewalk here, I'm going to use the urban sidewalk assembly piece. My numbers will be as follows. It's the right hand side. My inside boulevard width is 2.335. My sidewalk width is 2 meters. My outside boulevard is 0.3. The slope is 2%, and the depth of the sidewalk is 0.1. I'm going to attach that to the top right of my curb and gutter. So this gives me essentially half of my road pre-built. So I have, so far we've defined our median, we've defined our inside curb and gutter, we've defined our driving lane and our bike lane, we've defined our outside curb and gutter, and we've defined our sidewalk piece. So what I'm going to do is I now want to create the exact same pieces on the left-hand side of my primary collector here. So I'm going to select all 5 of these pieces, and I'm going to, right now we'll be tempted to use the mirror command. However, mirror will not work, and it could introduce bugs into your drawing. When we're specifically talking about assemblies and corridors, there are some special right-click menus. So I'm going to select the 5 pieces I want. I'm going to right-click, and there is a mirror command. There's a move to, there's a copy command. So I'm going to mirror that. And it asks for the marker point within the assembly for the mirrored sub-assemblies. I'm not going to select the center line. I'm going to select the top left purple circle, which is going to drop my road onto the left-hand side now. And if I measure the distance here, if I go from the very left to the very right, this should be 29 meters wide to match my 29 meters wide here. And I can also double confirm my edge of asphalt to edge of asphalt is 18.9. So there's our 18.9. The final step I'm going to make here is to name my assembly pieces. So I'm going to select the median flush with barrier, the middle one, and I'm going to name it center median. And I'm going to do this relatively quickly. The left curb and gutter, so left inside gutter. We have the left lane. Then we have the left bike lane. I named that left inside gutter, so we're going to name this one left outside gutter. And then finally, we're going to name this one left sidewalk. And I'm going to go repeat the exact same steps on the right-hand side. Right inside gutter. We're going to name this one right lane. We'll name this one right bike lane. Right outside gutter. And right sidewalk. So that is an almost completed, and we'll describe the almost here in a couple more videos when we go and start creating the corridor and things don't match up properly. But that's an almost completed primary collector assembly for our corridor. In the next video, we're going to create some more assemblies, and I'll start moving a little bit faster and not explain things as much as we define the rest of our assemblies.